Hey, what's up everybody? My name is Mustafa and you're watching Renovation at School. In this episode, I want to show you how to do the rough and plumbing for a bathroom and a kitchen in a basement. In the previous video, I showed you how to locate your pipes under a concrete slab. If you haven't watched that video, please make sure to watch it. I will also leave the link for that specific video in the descriptions. In case you're interested, please make sure to watch that video after this one as well. So now I know where the exact location of my plumbing is under the slab in this basement. Now I just want to show you how exactly I figured out where exactly the toilet is going to be, where the vanity is going to be, and there's some tips that I have to share before I even cut the concrete. So if you want to learn how to cut the concrete, how to dig it, how to do the rough and plumbing in it, how to vent it properly, and stuff like that, please make sure to stay with me till the end of this video. All right, so in the previous video, Jesse showed us where exactly the plumbing is located under the slab. He left that mark, and as of right now, we know that the plumbing underneath of here is 2 feet down, and it's going this way to the city line, which is located under the asphalt in the street. So as of the plan right now, this is going to be a bedroom here. There will be a door. I just put these rough pieces of wood down so you can kind of imagine what's going on. That's an exterior wall. In case you're wondering why the color of that wall is blue, I have a specific video explaining how to waterproof a concrete wall like that. So please make sure to watch that also in case you're interested. And as you can see, I installed that top and bottom plate for my framing. The first thing I did was to kind of figure out where exactly my framing is going to be on this specific wall because we were planning on having a bathroom here. In my framing video, I'm going to show you how exactly you can frame an exterior wall, interior walls, doors, windows, and other stuff in a basement. So as of right now, this area where I put these 4 pieces of wood is going to be my bathroom. So imagine there's going to be a door here that opens up this way. We walk inside the bathroom. That's going to be the toilet. We're going to have a vanity here. And then we have a shower base that I just purchased from Lowe's. That shower base is going to be here. And that's the location of the drain. Generally speaking, when we're doing plumbing, I normally do my absolute best not to have any water pipes on the exterior side because there's chances that they're going to freeze up. And if we have to repair it, we have to do a lot of work. So for that reason, I normally don't do it. But for this specific project, we had to do it. And as the result, you can see that I framed this wall about 3.5 inches away because we want to insulate this pretty well. So after when I install my plumbing, the plumbing is going to be insulated, so they're not going to freeze up, even though chances are very small. So this is what's going on. That's the reason why you see a lot of gaps. So that's the location of the toilet that you can see here. That center part is going to be exactly the center of the toilet flange that is going to go on the ground. So in 99% of the areas, the building code requires you to leave at least 12 inches of a space from that finished wall behind the toilet to the center of the flange. And 99% of the toilets are designed this way. There are some specific ones that are smaller and the ones that install on the wall. Those are different types. We're talking about the regular ones that you see in every normal house, basically. So the reason why I marked it 13 inches down is because we're going to have a piece of drywall here, and after that, you're going to need 12 inches. I left 13 because later on, if someone wants to tile this wall, they can still do that without even moving the toilet or any of the plumbing away. Plus, it's always better to have a little bit of a space on the back side of it. So in case you want to paint the wall or something, you don't have to remove the whole toilet. As you can see, from this wall, which is going to be a partition wall between that bedroom and this bathroom, the code again in 90% of areas will ask you to leave at least 15 inches from there to the center of the toilet flange. The same rules goes here as well. So basically, you're not supposed to have anything around this area. You can't have this closer to the wall, or a person cannot sit on the toilet properly. There are some other stuff that you need to keep in mind also, which I'm going to explain it now. Basically, from the center of this to the center of the drainage for the vanity, which in my case, it's going to be right there, the building code or the plumbing code asks you to have minimum 30 inch of space. So these two must be at least 30 inches away from each other. As you can see, I left a mark from there to there. That's 30 inches, and I left that mark. My goal is to install a small vanity here. In this case, it's going to be a 24-inch. And then the plumbing will come up here as a stack. We're going to have the ventilation, and I'm going to show you everything you need to know about this kind of a plumbing that I'm doing here. And at the same time, again, that's going to be the drainage for my shower. So we're going to have a 2-inch pipe coming this way. I am planning on running a wet valve. As of right now, I'm not too sure what size of a plumbing I'm going to be using. Probably I use a 3-inch or even 4-inch. It doesn't matter. It's not a bad idea to go bigger. You don't want to go too small. And from there, I'm going to come this way, connect the toilet to it, and move everything right there. We also have a kitchen there, so we're going to have a kitchen sink here. For that, I'm not going to dig the concrete because I can run it right to this main stack, and right from here I can go down on the ground. I will explain this whole thing to you guys once I cut this, once I lay all these plumbing here. I will go in details and explain how exactly everything was done. Please let me show you how I cut the concrete floor. A lot of times I like to cut it with a saw, and then I use my jackhammer to kind of hammer it, make it into smaller portions, and kind of reach to what's below that actual concrete. So in many cases, I've seen a lot of people just rent a jackhammer and kind of go onto the concrete slab. In this specific case, this house is about 50 years old, and I'm pretty confident there is asbestos in this concrete. So I like to use a wet saw, cut this down, and then use my jackhammer. Even when I'm using my jackhammer, I wet down the concrete, so I'm not exposing any of that asbestos into the air. So many people may not have an idea about asbestos. It was some kind of a material. They were adding it to pretty much a lot of building materials back in the days. Before 1990s, if your house is built before 1990s, chances are huge that you have asbestos in your house, especially in your concrete, drywall, insulation, and a lot of other building materials back then. So that product is extremely cancerous, and it could cause a lot of health issues. For that reason, I like to cut this with a wet saw so I can manage the amount of dust that is going to be created by jackhammering and cutting down the concrete floor. So I am using this tile saw in my case. You can rent these bigger saws from Home Depot, Lowe's, and other places, but I have this already, and I am just going to use this. This comes with a water hose attachment. This connects to a garden hose. So when I turn it on, there's going to be water coming to the blade at all time. And it just makes my life a bit easier when I'm pouring this concrete at the very end of the job, when I'm pouring that concrete on top of that hole that we opened. Because this cut that we made is nice and perfect, it's going to be a lot easier to fill this up. And plus, I've noticed when you don't cut this and you just go with jackhammer, chances are your concrete is going to get cracked, and you might actually have to repair a lot more. So to minimize the amount of dust, to be protected against the asbestos, and also to protect myself against working too much when I'm filling this concrete, I like to use this. Again, I like to use this wet tile saw to cut my lines into the concrete first before I use my jackhammer. And as you can see here, it does a perfect job. It goes through the concrete pretty nice because I put on a segmented blade on it. And as you can see, it runs on water. It has a hose connection to it that connects to a garden hose. And the water runs constantly when I'm making these cuts. It probably take me 20 minutes to make all these cuts. It's pretty nice and fast, and I always recommend you to do this. It makes your cuts a lot easier and clean, and at the end your job is going to be a lot cleaner. Then I move on to the jackhammering process. As you can see, I'm using a jackhammer here. Again, because this is an older house and I'm pretty confident there is asbestos in this concrete, I am using a garden hose here when I'm chipping this concrete off. This is going to kind of minimize the amount of dust that is going to be lifting off of the surface of the concrete, and it is just going to be a little bit safer to work with in this environment. To be honest with you, it's a little bit messier to run that garden hose, but honestly I'd rather deal with this than asbestos. So once the jackhammering process is done, I use my hands to remove all those big chunks of the concrete from the ground first. And then I use my masonry hammer to kind of dig and loosen up all those dirts around those edges and all those areas that are not cut by my tile saw. I loosen up the surface of the dirt a little bit so then I can use my shovel and clean up and kind of dig it out nice and easy. And then I use my shovel to remove this nice and loose dirt. As you can see, this opening is cut around 12 inches. That is going to allow my shovel to fit there nice and easy. The digging process is all done. It wasn't an easy job. It took me one full day to do this whole process. Let me show you a close-up look of what exactly is going on. This job turned out to be the worst case scenario. So this is going to be the area where the shower drain is going to be. So there's going to be a P-trap here. It's going to go down this way and it's going to get connected to a 4-inch PVC pipe. I have a clay pipe here that was the old system of weeping tile. I'm going to explain that in a few seconds. Luckily, it turned out to be here. It's sitting about 4 inches below the grade, so I'm okay to run my 2-inch pipe here. Luckily, if it would have been there, it would be an absolute nightmare. It would be a different story. So here is going to be the location for the vanity connection. And also the kitchen line is going to come here, get connected to a main stack. From here, I'm going to have a ventilation that goes to the outside of the house. In your case, it might be connecting to the ventilation that you already in your house. So the water line is coming here again after that. There's going to be a toilet connection with a Y connected to a 4-inch PVC pipe. The 4-inch PVC pipe will go all the way here. This is what I was talking about. This is the absolute worst case scenario. As you can see, I have 2 clay pipes sitting there. That's the old system of weeping tiles. Nowadays, we have these perforated black big O pipes that are used as weeping tiles. So this is a very old system. As you can see, there's another hole here. That's another pipe like this one that is sitting below that footing right there. So this was connected to this one. As you can see, this is exactly how it was located. No joints, no kind of a seam, nothing. So exactly loose like this, they were sitting next to next. There was some pea gravel all around it. So the way it used to work, the water used to get filtered through those pea gravels and go inside the seams. And from this, it would transfer to a connection where it used to be connected to the main sewer line. But nowadays, the weeping tiles are connected to a sump pit, and from the sump pit, we have a sump pump that gets rid of the water. So the pipe that you can see at the bottom of this hole is the actual main sewer line that is connected to the city line on the outside of the house. That's the pipe that we have to cut and connect our new connections to it and get new branches for our new bathroom and the kitchen. I don't know about the age of your property, but most of the times when you open the concrete floor in the basement to find the sewer pipes, a lot of times in older houses, you're going to find a cast iron pipe. And if the house is newer, you're going to find PVC pipes installed under the ground. But as you can see in this house, we have clay pipes. That shows that this is the oldest system of plumbing ever. So now before I cut this pipe and add my new connections to it, I want to talk to you guys about a backup flow preventer. I want to talk to you about what it is and how exactly it works. In my opinion, it's a very important upgrade that you have to add to your plumbing system, especially if you're planning on finishing your basement. So now that the concrete is open, you can see the sewer pipe on the bottom part of this hole. So basically all the wastewater from this house comes through this pipe, and this pipe is connected to the bigger pipe, which is a city line basically. All the wastewater from here and your neighbors go inside that bigger pipe. Now imagine if that bigger pipe is like kind of disconnected, broken, or it's clogged up for whatever reason. So there's going to be a lot of water from your neighbors and other areas of the town that comes to this pipe, and this pipe is clogged up. So what's going to happen? All that water is going to back up into your basement, and it's going to flood your basement. And that's nasty water. You don't want that to happen. In order to prevent that from happening, they made these backup flow preventers. So this is not my favorite type of backup flow preventer. I also show you the type that I really like, but I show you why I'm going to be using this for this application. But before that, I just have to explain why I'm installing this or how this works exactly. So inside this, there's a flap. The water comes here from this way. It pushes that flap. The flap opens up fully, and all the water goes away from the house. So basically, I'm going to be installing it right here at the very last point where the water goes out of the house in this application. So there's an access door on the very top. if I open this up, there's a gasket, there's a seal on this. So when you tighten it up, it makes a nice seal so no water comes back from it. In the inside, I hope the camera can see it properly. There's a flap that could be removed. If you're installing this, I highly recommend you to open this up every 4 months and clean up the inside of it. So basically 3 times a year is a must in my opinion. You need to open it up and clean up this area just to make sure that there's nothing stuck under this flap. So just to make sure that this does the right job. Basically, after your cleaning is done, you put this back in place and it's going to do its job. Again, when the water comes, this is what's going to happen. It's going to open that flap and it gets out of this end. So now when I close this on top of it, nice and tight, if I close this up, that flap is not going to be removable. It kind of holds that top portion. Once it's held down by that, it doesn't come off. So this is how it's going to basically be when it's sealed or closed. It's going to be secure and nice in place. So think about this. Because this is a bedroom, if I install it here, it's not going to take too much space. It's going to sit right in this corner. It is still going to be noticeable if you walk in because the finished wall is here. We're going to have an area that we're going to see this, but honestly, it's not too bad. The other type that I'm going to be talking about in a few seconds, it requires a 1x2 box here. The access panel for that is pretty big. And this is a bedroom here where I'm working. If you have a utility room or some other area that you're installing this in that case, make sure to go with that one. But because I have a bedroom here, I have to kind of minimize the style of this backup flow preventer. So as you can see here, once I connect it, it's going to be deep inside here. So in my case, this is going to be sitting about almost 2 feet down. Imagine in your house, maybe your plumbing is higher, maybe it's 8 inches, maybe it's 10, maybe it's 1 foot. We don't know how far deep this is going to be, and we need to have access to this. So imagine if I fill this area up with concrete after the plumbing job is done. How do I access to that? So to fix that issue, they made this a sleeve. So this goes on top of here and push it down. Now, after I install it, basically imagine if it's even a bit more down, I'm going to be okay. So after we're done, we put the gravel back on, we pour the concrete here. I can cut this with my saw flush with the surface of the concrete, and there's a cap that goes on top of it. It actually sits nice and secure in place, and it says that it's for the backup water flow preventer. So imagine, excuse me. So now imagine if I cut it down to there and put this back on top, it's going to be nice and flush with the concrete, just like that. So every time we need to kind of clean it, we just pop this open with a screwdriver, we open it up. And as I showed you before, we can open up that valve or the cap that goes on top here. Once that cap is removed, we have access to the inside of it so we can clean it up. So now let me show you how I'm going to cut the plumbing here and how am I going to get a branch off of this for my new plumbing for the bathroom and the kitchen that I'm planning on building. All right, so we're back here. This is the connection that I made for here. In a little bit, I'm going to explain how to glue these pipes together and what kind of a glue to use and what type of primer to use for it. But as of right now, this is just that backup flow valve that I was just talking about. It has a flow arrow on it. So basically that indicates that the water is coming this way. So the flap is here. And then I installed this Y connection to it. So basically this is how it's going to go on top of this pipe. So it's going to be like that. That backup flow valve, the top portion is going to sit nice and level like this. And then I have to cut those pipes. And then I have these connections for it. This slides on the clay pipe. And this side sits on top of my PVC pipe. And then I have to tighten up these two clamps. And it's going to be sitting there nice and secure forever. So I decided to use my angle grinder to cut through this pipe. Because it's a clay pipe, I decided to use a masonry segmented blade again to go through this. If you are dealing with cast iron pipe, you have to use a disc that can go through the iron. To cut the PVC pipes, I normally use my reciprocating saw with a metal blade on it. So I left 2 good marks on this pipe, but before I cut that, I decided to remove the center portion just so I can have a better idea of how to cut this and how to go through this. But as soon as I removed that center portion, a nightmare happened. The pipe that you can see on the right side of the video dropped down. At this point, I realized that these pipes were assembled in 2-foot sections. So they brought them to the job site, they used some kind of cement on the seams, and then they put them on together in 2-foot sections. At this point, I was very disappointed and clueless how to fix this, but I went to the Lowe's and luckily I found this solution. So I found this 4-inch corrugated pipe adapters at Lowe's. So as you can see, this is how it looks like. Luckily, it's gonna fit right inside that clay pipe fitting. And if I push the end of this pipe inside that fitting, it's gonna go in nice and tight. And the very good thing is it's gonna go inside that pipe for a good 3 to 3.5 inches. And if I apply some 100% silicone to this seam, it should sit there forever. So I glued this to the end of the fitting that I made. If I push this inside that fitting, it's gonna go nice and deep inside. And this is how it looks like on the other end of it. So if I put that rubber fitting with 2 clamps on it, it's gonna keep this nice and snug in place. This is the best and by far the most expensive type of silicone that I could find at Lowe's. I bought a few tubes of this. I applied a very generous amount of this in the inside part of that clay pipe. I also applied a lot of this to the actual fitting that goes inside that pipe as well. And then I pushed that whole fitting that I made inside that clay pipe. It went in there nice and snug. And then I tightened up the rubber boot on the other end of it so the connection is made. I checked it for level. I made sure the water is going away from the house. It did the job. It was perfect. At this point, the connection was made. So I decided to apply a lot more silicone to the outer part of that fitting so it's nice and waterproof when it dries up. I also added one more clamp on both sides of that rubber boot. And then if we take a look at this end of the pipe, you can see that there's tons of silicone sitting there. At this point, I made sure nobody uses the plumbing in this house for 24 hours so that silicone has enough time to set and cure. So after the silicone is set, we can get our branches for the new bathroom and kitchen from this Y connection so the water comes inside this Y fitting and goes outside the house. So the job is completely done right now. Let me just explain what exactly is going on. The water from the house is coming this way and it's going out of the house. So we installed that backup flow preventer that is going to prevent any kind of a flood from the city line coming back inside the house. We also have a Y connection here. Keep in mind, Y is the code. You need a Y connection like this. It looks like a Y, that's why they call it a Y. Or you can use something that has that sweep 90 connection to it. Reason why is in any horizontal application, you want to have the best flow of water. For that reason, you have to use a Y or a long sweep 90. If you use the other connection that has a short 90 to it, it's going to fail your inspection. Keep that in mind. As you can see, I use some 22.5-degree attachments to make these connections super nice, and the water can basically slide right in there without any issues. If we continue here, we had another Y. As you can see, again, this is the code. You either have to use a Y or a long sweep 90 connection Y kind of a type. Again, I use a 45-degree here and it's connected to a toilet connection. As you can see, that's a 4-inch. The building code normally requires this to be at least 3-inch. This pipe could be 3-inch all the way down, but I use 4-inch just to be on the safest side possible. I want this to have the most amount of flow of water in it. The inspector told me if you use 4-inch pipe, you don't even need ventilation, but I used a vet vent system here. I'm going to explain that in a few seconds. So if we go back this way, you can see that I installed another Y connection. From that Y connection, I installed a reducer, which looks like that. So basically, we reduced the 4-inch pipe into 2-inch. And from there, I used ABS pipe. It's coming all the way down here. We have a P-trap at the bottom part of this. As you can see, it's going down like this and it's coming up. The P-trap is because basically if there's any sewer gases coming back here, that water is going to be sitting on the bottom part of this P-trap. It's going to stop the bad smell and the gases to come back inside your house. So that's the reason why we need a P-trap underneath of a bathtub or shower. So now let's move back to our connections. So right from there, as you can see, I used a 45-degree angle. I used two more 45s. I'm going back up. I left the clean out. So every time you make a connection from vertical to horizontal connections, you need to have a plug like that. And that's for cleaning purposes, obviously, in case there's any cloggage in these pipes. You can feed that a snake from here and kind of open it up. So if we come back up, on the right side, that's going to be the connection to my vanity. The measurement right from there to the center of that, it's 20 inches. And I also have another branch that is going all the way there, and that's going to be for my kitchen connection. Let me show you how it looks like. It comes all the way to here. Again, the code asks for 1.5 inches. This is 2-inch pipe that I installed. Again, this is a huge overkill, but honestly, I'd rather to be on the safe side. So just to be on the safe side and have no cloggage later on, it's a good idea to go with a 2-inch. I highly recommend you that. So down here, you can see I installed another Y. From that Y, it's coming out. And from here, I'm going to reduce this to 1.5. And then we're going to have the sink plugged to this or connected to that. I also installed another Y and a clean out again. In case we need to clean this up, we have to basically run a snake again. And then I added another connection to this, and this is for the venting. As you can see, this is connected to the outside of the house. In this application, again, because the height is pretty low in this basement, and if we wanted to connect the ventilation here to the main stack in this house, it's about 35 to 40 feet away from here. So that would be a huge issue because we had to maintain this slope. We had to make a big bulkhead. Again, this wasn't an option here. So the inspector allowed us to drill a hole to the outside of the house and run this pipe directly to the outside. And I show you what I did with the outside. This is how it looks like. I put that 45-degree to it. And at the very bottom part, we installed one of these grills, so no mouse or no kind of a small animals or something else can come inside this and clog this up. So from the inside part of the basement, it comes down this way. The air is going to flow this way. As you can see, I installed this Y and it's installed backward. Imagine if we had this as a water pipe, you wanted the Y to be the other way. But because it's an air vent system, as you can see, the air is going to go down like this. If there's any moisture in it, it's going to come down here basically and kind of go out of the house if there is any moisture by any chance. So as you can see, this is continuing. It's going to go all the way there. It comes down. It gets connected to that. And this is called the wet valve, basically. In normal cases, this must be 1.25 inches, because the toilet ventilation system requires at the very minimum about 1.5 inches ventilation. But as you can see here, again, everything is a super overkill. As you can see, that's a 2-inch pipe that I used. It's coming down to a 3-inch kind of a cross connection. So it is going to serve as a wet valve. Basically, the water is coming down here and also the air is coming down here. And it's going to kind of be a wet valve all the way to this connection right there, basically. So we are allowed, as of the code, to use something like this, the same way that this one is. Now imagine if my shower from here was on the other side and this connection was coming down here. I had to get another branch higher than the vanity height, basically from here, and go down and make another vent connection to my plumbing. So pretty much everything is sloped properly. You can even see it down here. I only have 1 inch from the surface of the concrete because I have another weeping tile that is running there. Ideally, I wanted this to be a bit lower, but because that's sitting right there, I can't, push this any lower or the water is going to be pooling in the back part. So for that reason, it's sitting a little bit high. It's like probably around 1.5 inches below the concrete, which is still okay. So ventilation is extremely important because it's going to allow all the sewer gases to go out. Another benefit of the ventilation system is once your plumbing is done right and properly and you have the proper ventilation, when the water is going down inside these pipes, it's going to kind of go smoother and better. It's the code, it's required. Make sure not to skip that. So another thing that you might ask me is why this drainage doesn't have a vent connected to it and that one has it. This is a 2-inch pipe. and pretty much from here to there, it's about 12 feet run. Because the thickness of this pipe is about 2 inch, and we have more than 8 feet run here, anything more than that, I had to add that vent. You're supposed to have a quarter of an inch of slope basically on your pipe. And if you add that up to that 12 feet, it was going to be more than the actual 2 inches. For that reason, if it's going to be more than the actual thickness of your pipe, you have to install a separate ventilation for it. That's the reason why it's there. I have to add a quick side note here for all my amazing American viewers who are watching my videos. As you noticed here, I used ABS pipes for above grade. That is the building code in our area. We're located in Windsor, Ontario in Canada. And that's what basically the building code requires us to do. That's basically the only thing that the building code in my area allows me to use above grade. I know that pretty much in 90% of the areas in the state, you're allowed to use ABS pipes throughout your whole project. It's actually by far cheaper as well. And the quality and the thickness of the material that you can buy in the state is by far better than what we can purchase in Canada. So please make sure to double check with your building inspector before you actually jump into the process. So the only difference is going to be in the type of material. The rest of the process is going to be pretty much the same. So you don't have to worry about the rest of it. Just make sure to use the right type of pipe and material. After my framing was done, I used these metal straps in every 4 foot to keep these pipes nice and secure in place. So in order to keep the pipes in place and prevent any sagging over time, it's very important to use these straps between 4 to 6 feet apart. It is the code. Make sure you don't forget this step. In order to cut the pipes, for the most part, I use a reciprocating saw with a metal blade on it. You can even use a miter saw if you want to. It actually makes the cuts a lot cleaner. The one thing to keep in mind, every time you make a cut, you just have to use some kind of a tool to deburr that area that you cut. Sometimes there's a little bit of imperfections left on it. For the most part, I use a regular knife. I use the back side of the knife. I go around the pipe a few times and it shaves off all those imperfections. In order to glue my ABS pipes together, I use a primer that is rated for ABS pipes and fittings. I apply a very generous amount of this on the pipe and the fitting that is going to be glued to this. I normally wait about 1 minute till this dries up and then I apply the glue. The glue also must be rated for ABS. Make sure to read the label and double check. The primer for ABS pipes normally comes in purple and clear color. I like to use the purple one because I can visually see that I covered up the whole area where the fitting is going to go when I'm applying it. And also when the inspector comes at the end of the job, they can visually see that every joint was primed and glued together. As far as the glue, I mostly use medium gray. It's rated for ABS on the label. I apply a very good amount of this on the pipe and the fitting that needs to be glued together. For the most part, this glue dries up super quick, so you got to be quick to apply a lot of this onto the pipe and the fitting, and also you have to be quick to put the pipe and the fitting together. When you put these together, you only have 3 seconds for that chemical bond to be made. Basically, when you push these pipes together, after 3 seconds, it's going to kind of weld together. It's going to be impossible to remove them after. So when you put them together, make sure to hold it for a good 4 to 5 seconds. Also dry fit them beforehand. Make sure you leave some marks for yourself. So when it goes in, you kind of line it up immediately before that chemical reaction happens. You can definitely connect ABS and PVC pipes together. You just have to make sure to use the right type of primer and the glue for it. It's a special primer that is rated for ABS, PVC, and CPVC. Again, make sure to apply a generous amount on the fitting and the actual pipe. I normally wait about 30 seconds to a minute till the primer dries up, and then I put my glue on it and put these two fittings together. The glue is also rated for ABS, PVC, and also CPVC. Make sure to use the right glue. For the most part, this glue looks white color. That is going to be an indicator to make sure that you're not making a mistake with the type of glue that you're going to be using. When you put the glued pieces together, you have to hold it for a good 4 to 5 seconds so that chemical reaction happens and they kind of weld together. It's very important to do this, and also if you want to remove the excess glue, you can just clean it up after. If you want to glue ABS pipes together, you don't have to use any type of a primer. Just clean up the fitting and the pipe with your hands first. Then apply some of the yellow ABS glue to the pipe and the fitting. Put them together, hold it for 4 seconds, and you're good to go. If you're watching this video from Canada and you're planning on using ABS pipes, make sure that all your pipes and the fittings are CSA approved. These pipes are normally a little bit thicker, and that's what you want to go with. It's very important to assemble and dry fit your fittings together before you glue them. It's very important to leave some marks on them so you can line them up when you have the glue on the pipe and the fittings. The biggest DIY mistake that I've noticed a lot is when people assemble all these fittings and pipes together first, they dry fit the whole thing together, then they leave their marks, and then they remove every joint and glue them all together. If you go that route, chances are at the end, your pipes are not going to line up where they're supposed to be, because when you dry fit the fittings, not all the time they're going to go exactly all the way into the fittings. So it's very important to go maybe 2 or 3 fittings at a time if you want to be on the safest side possible. This is what I do, and I've been always successful with it. This is the biggest tip of the video. I hope you take this part serious. So in order to save yourself some time and to be on the safest side possible, make sure to only dry fit 2 or 3 pieces at a time, just so you don't make a mistake once the plumbing job is done. Now that the rough and plumbing is done, it's time to backfill the dirt and finish up the concrete on the surface. In case you're wondering how to do that, please make sure to watch my next video. There's a lot of tips and tricks in that one as well. As you can see, this is the result. It turned out super nice and beautiful. I guarantee you're gonna like that video as well. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to subscribe. If this video was any help to you, please make sure to hit that like button. It's gonna help out the channel so much. If you have any questions, please make sure to drop me a comment and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you very much for watching this video. Till next time, peace.